Good morning to the doctor and my fellow classmate. My name is Yu Gongjie and machine number is 285543. Today I would like to present about the Enhanced Entity Relationship Model, which is EERD. So first, let's see the first class, which is the management. So the management will be where we have the entity of management and have the attribute of staff ID, which is the primary key, staff name, staff position, and also staff contact. So one management can manage one community. And one community only can manage by one management. So let us see the second class, which is the community. So the entity is community and the attribute have community IDs, which is the primary key as well, and community names, community PIC, which are person in charge, and PIC contact, number of members. So the one community will be organized one or many community events. So we can see the event have the event IDs, event date and time, and also event locations. The events community events is the superclass, which is consists three subclass. Is art, cultural, socials, and religious events, and as well as sport entertainments. So in the art, cultural, social, we can see the category of events. We can see religion organization under the religious events, and also type of program under the sport and entertainment events. So these three subclasses are mandatory all, and the community events can notify the message to the resident through the message drop box. So one community can send more than one message, and the message only uh, under the only one community events. So we can see under the message Dropbox class, we can see the entity of message Dropbox, which is consists the Dropbox ID, which is the primary key for the attributes, and the receiver names, sender's name, send date, and also receive date. And the management side can send the message on notification to the resident as well through the message Dropbox. So the management can send more than one message or notifications, but the notification only sent by the management as well. So we can see the another class is residents. So in the resident class, we can see the resident ID, which is the primary keys, and also resident names, resident contacts, and resident address. So the residents can involve in more than one community and also uh, receive more than one message from the Dropbox. And also, the management will be manage the residents' data, and resident can make the feedback to the management or to make the complaints, report, and also maintenance through the feedbacks. So in the feedback class, we can see the feedback IDs and also issues date and time for the attribute in feedback forms. And the feedback IDs is the primary keys. So we can see the three subclass from the feedback, which is the complaints, report, and also maintenance. So in the complaints, we can see the complaints categories. In the reports, we can see the type of reports, and also in the maintenance, we can see the maintenance progress. So that's from our enhanced entity relational models. Thank you. Secondly, we want to make our enhanced entity relational models more clearly. We list down the assumptions. So let's see the assumptions. First, the unique attribute for all superclass and subclass are assumed. Some of the unique subclass are assumed, and all the staff of management and also person in charge of the community are held by the residents. And the category of complaints consists of service, facilities, and amenities. The report types can be categorized by urgent or trivial. Events can send a notification message to the resident through the message Dropbox, and the residents will receive the message from the Dropbox by management or the events.
Hi, my name is Chen, metric number 286275. Now I would like to present about the relational model of our database. For the first one here, we have complaint, which has the attribute of feedback ID, issue date, issue time, complaints cat, and resident ID. The feedback ID is being primary key, while the foreign key for the resident ID is references from the resident table, which is resident ID. For second one, the maintenance part, feedback ID, issue date, issue time, maintenance progress, and resident ID. Feedback ID is known as the primary key, and the foreign key is resident ID, which references from the resident table. For the report, feedback ID, issue date, issue time, report type, and resident ID. And the primary key is the feedback ID, while the foreign key is the resident ID and references from the resident table. This tree table is actually a subclass for the superclass, which is the feedback table, because it is mandatory or so that the superclass is not existed in our relational model, and the tree subclass is inherit the attributes and the primary key from the superclass and also the foreign key. As for the resident table, which is number 4, we have resident ID, resident name, resident contact, resident address, and staff ID, with resident ID being the primary key and foreign key as for the resident table is staff ID, which references the management table. For the fifth of the relational table, we have community table, which has the attribute of community ID, community name, community pick, and pick contact, and number of member, with the primary key is being community ID. For the number 6, resident community, which has the attribute of resident ID, community ID, and registration year. The primary key is resident ID and community ID, and the foreign key for the resident community is also resident ID that references the resident table and also the community ID that references from the community table. This is because both community table and the resident table is one-to-many relation. Thus, we have to create a new table so that we can inherit both the primary key and that act as also act as the foreign key of the resident community table. For number 7, we have management, which has the attribute of staff ID, staff name, staff position, staff contact, and community ID. With the primary key is staff ID and the foreign key is community ID that references from the community table. For number 8, the message Dropbox table, we have the attribute of Dropbox ID, receiver name, sender name, send date, receive date, and resident ID, event ID, and staff ID. The primary key for the message Dropbox table is the Dropbox ID, and the foreign key for the table is resident ID that references from the resident table. Event ID references the community event, and foreign key staff ID references from the management table. For number 9 is the art culture social, which has the event ID, date time, event location, category of event, and community ID. The event ID is the primary key of the table, and the community ID is the foreign key that references the community table. For the religious event ID, date time, event location, religion organization, and community ID is the attribute for that table. And the event ID is also the primary key of the religious event table, and community ID is the foreign key for the religious event table that references from the community table. Sport and entertainment has the attribute of event ID, date time, event location, type of program, and community ID. For the primary key is the event ID, and the foreign key is community ID that references from the community table. These three table, which art, culture, social, religious event, and sport and entertainment, is also the subclass for the superclass of community table. That's why it inheritance the attribute and the primary key from the community table because the relation is the mandatory or. And that's all from me. Thank you.
Good day, madam. My name is Pong Yen Ho. My reference number is 2846115. I will present about normalization form. So the first thing in normalization form is to create a normalized form. To create a normalized form, we need to create an entity name as community event, and we need to gather all the attributes from ARD inside our community event. The next is first normalized form. First normalized form is to determine two primary key from our community event, and we create an entity from the primary key. So we can see community is our entity, and we bring out our primary key and all the attributes from the community. So we can see community ID is our primary key, community name, community PIC contact, and number of member is our attribute of community. Next is second normalized form. Second normalized form is to create another entity for our primary key that we determine from our community event. So we will create an entity named as event, and we bring out our primary key as event ID, and also its attribute event date and time, event location, category of event, religion, organization, type of program. The last is third normal form. Third normal form is to identify foreign key from community event. So we have identified 4 foreign key from community event. We bring out to create an entity for the foreigner key. So we can see that we bring out resident ID as primary key, and we create an entity named as resident, and its attribute are resident name, resident contact, resident address, and same as staff ID, we bring out as primary key for staff, and its attribute are staff name, staff position, and staff contact. And same as Dropbox ID as primary key for the attribute of Dropbox, and the attribute is receiver name, sender name, send date, receive date. And also for the feedback ID as primary key for feedback, and its attribute is issue date and time, complaint category, report type, maintenance progress. That's all from me. Thank you.
Table relationship is to show the relationship between the tables, which is from our database. So let's see our table of relationship. First, we can see the management tables, which is have the column of staff ID, staff name, staff position, and also contact. So the staff ID will be the foreign key for the community events tables, and also the primary key of the management tables. Second is the community tables. We can see the community IDs, community names, community PIC, community uh, PIC contact, and also number of members. So the primary key is community IDs, which is also the foreign key for the community events under the table of community IDs. And the third is the resident tables, which has the residence IDs, residence name, resident contact, and also resident address. So the primary key of resident ID will also begins the um, foreign key for the community as events, and also we can see the events. We have the event IDs, event date and times, events location, event category of events, events religious organizations, and also type of programs. So the primary key of the event ID will be the foreign key under the community events, which is the event IDs, and the meshes tables. We can see the Dropbox ID, we can see the receiver names, sender's name, send date, and also receive date. So the Dropbox ID will be our primary key and begins the foreign key for the community events tables for the Dropbox IDs. And last is the feedbacks tables. So feedback tables, we can see the feedbacks ID, we can see the issue date and time, we can see the complaint categories, we can see the maintenance progress, we can see the report types.
Hi, my name is Lee Han Yang. My shift number is 2F55.2. Today I'm going to present about table data. We have 7 tables, which is event, resident, staff, Dropbox, and feedback. So in this table, we have 2 primary key using composite primary key with constraint name PKCE, and then contains the column community ID and event ID. So for the other columns are foreign key reference from other tables, and all the data type in this table will be integer, and the nullable will be not null. So for the data in this table will be all integer. In table community, there's 5 column in this table, which is community ID with data type integer, and community name with data type varchar, community person in charge with data type varchar also, the person in charge Contact will also be data type varchar. And for the number of web number will be data type integer. So in this table, the primary key will be community ID. In table community, there's 5 columns in this table, which is community ID with data type integer and community name with data type varchar, community person in charge with data type varchar also. The person in charge contact will also be data type varchar. And for the number of web number will be data type integer. So in this table, the primary key will be community ID. So for the data of this table, you can see that the event ID will store as integer, the event date and time will store as timestamp, which is include the value of date and time, and the event location has home, sport field, basketball court, and then the wedding hall and also the tuition center. For the category of event, we'll have celebration, sports, and education. And for the religion of organization, we'll have Malay, Chinese, and for the type of program, we'll have tuition, wedding, birthday party, open house, and soccer match, and final soccer match, basketball match, final basketball match. So for this table, we'll have 4 columns of data, which is resident ID, resident name, resident contact, and resident address. Resident, I- resident ID is the primary key for this table using data type integer, and the resident address and resident name using varchar to store the value. And for the resident contact, we're using integer to store the value. So this is the data for this table. For resident ID, we will store as integer. For the resident name, we store as varchar, and the resident contact will store as integer, and the resident address will store as varchar. So in this table, we have 4 columns of data, which is staff ID, staff name, staff position, and staff contact. Staff ID will be the primary key in this table with data type integer, and staff name and staff position will use data type varchar to store the value. For the staff contact, we'll use data type integer to store the value. So for the data of table staff, the staff ID will store as integer, the staff name will store as varchar, and the staff position include president, vice president, secretary, treasury, cleaner, and security. The staff contact will store as integer. For the table Dropbox, we have 5 columns of data, which is Dropbox ID, sender name, receiver name, send date, and receive date. So Dropbox ID will be the primary key for this table with data type integer. And receiver name, sender name, we're using varchar data type to store the value. For the send date and receive date, we'll use data type date to store the value. For the data of table Dropbox, the Dropbox ID will store as integer, the receiver name and the sender name will store as varchar, the send date and receive date will store as data type date. For the table feedback, we have 5 columns of data, which is feedback ID, issue date and time, complaint category, and report type, and maintenance progress. So for the primary key for this table will be feedback ID with data type integer, and the issue date and time we're using data type timestamp to store the value. For maintenance progress, complaint category and report type, you're using data type varchar to store the value. For the table feedback, the data of feedback ID will store as integer. The issue and date and time will store as timestamp, include the value of date and the time. And complaint category, report type, and maintenance progress will store as varchar. In complaint category, we'll have services, facilities, and for the report type, we'll have urgent and travel. And for the maintenance progress, we have completed and ongoing. So that's all for our presentation. Thank you.